pase, pierna derecha, directo al arco, ¡golazo! ¡Golazo!
The world of football with a soccer perspective. This is Soccer Today with Duane Rollins and Kevin Laramie, live on the Sports Podcasting Network.
Good day, good night, and welcome to Soccer Today for Wednesday, April 6, 2022. I'm Kev Laramie, joined by Duane Rollins, back live on Twitter and, of course, on our YouTube page. So before we continue, I'm going to talk to Duane in a second, but take a second to subscribe to our YouTube page if you're watching us via YouTube. If you're watching us via Twitter, we're happy to be back live with you all. And, of course, follow us on all the social media platforms. Duane, it's been a great 24 hours in the world of soccer, but how are you today?
I'm pretty well. I'm just sitting here right now. I'm trying to stretch my shoulder out because I had made this stupid mistake last night of falling asleep on my couch for a while. And here's the thing. Don't ever do that after the age of, because it's just going to make you all sore and messy all day. But other than that, I'm spick and spazzy and ready to go. Spazzy is the right word. I am definitely spazzy, ready to go.
Duane is spazzy and ready to go. Today on the show, an eclectic show like only us can do, Duane. We have on the docket some Major League Soccer talk. We'll review some of the numbers from Major League Soccer's last weekend in the ratings department and talk about a conversation that I think is really needed to be had on TV numbers, what they represent, American TV numbers, and especially where it's going, what's happening at the end of the year. Going forward, a great article was published last week on Forbes. We'll break down the 5 talking points from that article talking about the disappointing TV numbers. We will also look at Gonzalo Higuain. I'm not wearing this pink polo by mistake. It is in his honor because according to his own father, he's retiring at the end of the season. We'll break down his Major League Soccer career, which you could be surprised. It's better than you think. We just have the highlight of Fat Gonzalo coming off of training camp. But, it's going to be an interesting topic. Later tonight, we have some CCL games. We'll break down the Concacaf Champions League, and we will have a very quick overview of the groups in the Concacaf Nations League because the draw was done 2 days ago, and we'll break down the results for today's show. But Duane, national TV numbers are very different in Canada and in the United States. As much as we like to talk about the TV numbers, cord cutting and that, which is something that exists, in Canada, we're a bit behind in that aspect. In Canada, TV numbers are always higher than the United States per capita. But when we look at the numbers, sometimes they're equal, with 1/10 of the population here having access to pretty much the same television channels. So when we look at some of the TV numbers from last weekend, which I think are fascinating because they're big games, especially the Sunday nighter, the Fox Sports 1 game, Portland Timbers versus the LA Galaxy. A dreadful, the word was used by Stephen Goff on his social media column on this topic, 123,000 viewers. Across the board, Duane, the numbers are slightly down in Major League Soccer in the United States. And the exact opposite is happening in Canada. All the channels that are broadcasting Canada MLS games, so in French is TVA Sport, in English is TSN. There has been a slight increase across all Canadian teams in Major League Soccer. So it's interesting, 2 different directions for MLS TV numbers, but the one that really matters is the one for the United States because at the end of the season, the national TV contracts are up for renewal, and this is not a good news for Don Garber.
No, and you mentioned the Canadian numbers, which I'll only put in context in the sense that it does sort of reflect a couple things. As you mentioned, the lack of cord cutting, although the significant amount of people do cut the cord in the 3 markets that Canadian MLS teams exist in, which will affect their numbers a bit. But they're pretty good. They're okay. But there's not big money in the Canadian contract, which is coming up. There'll be a bit. There might be a bid there a little bit, but there's not a lot of competition for it, so they don't expect much out of it, I would think. So the American numbers are what we need to focus on. Look, I'm of 2 minds of this. First off, I think that we get a little too caught up on it and we use the TV numbers to reflect overall popularity too much, and I don't think the correlation is exactly 1 for 1 there. It's not totally the case. Just because numbers are down doesn't mean the league doesn't have eyeballs on it. There's various ways you can watch the league, as you mentioned. We all understand that there are people out there that have VPNs and maybe are watching it on, Sky or something, or whatever they broadcast it over there. I don't know, but they might be watching it on stream, is what I'm saying. A lot of people will watch it on the legal streaming. I don't know how well that gets reflected in ratings either, but 120 whatever thousand. When you consider that probably 10,000 of those people fell asleep in front of their TV, right? It's a pretty bad number.
Well, it is the Fox Sports 1 demography, right? The demographic where after bowling, because bowling is broadcasted on Sunday afternoon sometimes on FS1, while you fall asleep. After the ham bone, after the turkey and the ham bone, you fall asleep on the couch and you end up watching Chicharito scoring a goal winner.
Well, yeah, and look, I actually did this once before. I don't know if you know this, but I actually was one of those people that had the box attached to the back of my TV for years back when I had cable. I cut the cord in 2017, so I haven't had cable since then. But before that, I did. So you literally, if you leave the TV on and you're not watching, it's viewing you as watching because it's not a diary situation. So yeah, that is probably part of it too. So you've got to take the numbers with a grain of salt.
Of course, with today's technology, they just know what you're watching regardless because everything knows everything about everyone. But, it's different back in the day, yeah.
Yeah, those YouTube ads you're getting, yeah.
Are they listening to me?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Triggered. I get ads that I've literally written because they've seen me what I type on my computer. So there you go.
When I get an ad that's something that I said out loud, I'm like, yeah, that's par for the course. You know what surprises the heck out of me? Is when I get an ad after thinking something. Because don't tell me that never happened to you. Sometimes you think about something and then you open your phone and the first thing you see is an ad about what you just thought about. I don't know how they do it, but David Copperfield lived inside my phone. And if you don't know David Copperfield, that's probably because it's an old reference. He liked the biggest magicians in 1987.
He made the Statue of Liberty disappear.
Well, yes, just like he jumped over Niagara Falls. Sure.
Yeah, exactly. So there's that. There's this famous special you can find on YouTube. Actually, it's interesting. Speaking of YouTube, look. To get back to the point at hand here, a lot of people are holding that number up, and they're comparing it in particular to the NWSL number that happened at the same time, which was 4 times as big. And those on the women's side of the ledger are holding up as women's soccer is more popular than men's. It's an argument I don't want to get into, but what I will say is it does maybe reflect the fact that FS1 is different than CBS, and yeah.
I was going to, sorry, I didn't mean to, I was going to say in the amount of attention CBS is putting on this versus the amount of effort FS1 is putting on their own shows. When it comes to this, San Diego Wave versus Angel City FC, 456,000 viewers, that's the peak, of course, on the proper CBS, which is a channel that is available over the airwaves, because those still exist, of course, over cable, and of course, over IPTV, if you understand what I mean by Internet Protocol Television.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I do think there's probably something to be said that women's soccer fans are more likely, and this gets into why the MLS numbers struggle, are more likely to watch anyone in the league because they're fans of women's soccer and they'll watch the whole league regardless. If it's on TV, they'll turn it on. Whereas if you're an LA Galaxy fan, you're not necessarily going to watch an LAFC game unless you're playing each other. And that's a real big problem, not just for MLS.
For other sports too, you're right.
Other sports, yeah.
And we're going to get into that because that's one of the 5 topics and the possible reasons in the article on Forbes that was written last week. And we're going to get there. But before we get to that article, I want to be fully transparent. Part of my day job, I do work on the broadcast of CF Montreal on TVA Sport. So I'm not going to necessarily go deep into TV numbers in Canada, but there's a slight increase across the board. Those are public numbers that you can figure out. And that's also an interesting aspect to keep in mind going forward. And Duane, you mentioned the possible reasons why the numbers could be down across the board in the United States. And I think it's important to have a look at an article that a journalist called Ian Nicholas Quillen, I probably butcher your last name and I apologize, has written on Forbes last week. This article is still available, Forbes.com. You'll find the link in the description of the show here. 5 possible reasons MLS ratings are disappointing early in 2022. And we'll start by the last one because you alluded to it. It's called expansion and unintended consequences, which means the more teams you have, the less one team will grab the attention of all the league, and the more regionalization of the fan bases will happen. local derbies will take advantage and will gather the attention in that area. That is one of the reasons and the consequences of having more teams. When Montreal got into the league, they were the 21st team, and then the 22nd, and we're all the way to 28 this season. There's a big difference. I remember what it was 1920 when we did shows. So that creates an hyper regionalization of the fan bases, and you don't get the big national numbers with regional fan bases. And that's one of the reasons why some fans believe and some journalists believe that could explain the national TV numbers down a little bit.
Yeah, look, I don't think there's any doubt that it is a very regionalized league in terms of who you follow. I asked our listeners in a poll earlier today why they thought these numbers were struggling, and only care about the local team is far and away the likely response they gave. 42% of the respondents to my poll, which also included quality of play, not enough promotion, and the league structure stuff, like we don't like the rules or program or all that sort of stuff in that. So almost half of the people that responded to this poll, which is about 200 respondents right now, think it's because of that. And I tend to agree with it. Before I started doing this, I really only watched TFC and maybe the Impact or Whitecaps, maybe, right? And now I watch the whole league and I enjoy it for it, but I'm very much in the minority. A lot of people don't even know, couldn't tell you the best players on some of these other teams. Like it's very much about your market. I look at the market I'm in. When TFC is good, when TFC was successful, they were getting huge numbers. They were getting 1 million for the MLS Cups. That's significant in this country, but that was really a one-off thing.
Yeah,
and
if you look
this isn't just MLS either. Like baseball suffers from this.
Yes.
MLB is huge on the regional. Like the St. Louis Cardinals draw massive numbers in St. Louis.
But the Cardinals are not drawing Theresa Smith that lives in Paducah, Kentucky. She doesn't tune in to Fox to watch the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, the only team in Major League Baseball that has a little bit of success nationally is the Blue Jays, and that's because they have one single network that basically has all of their support behind pushing that team.
By the way, I don't know why I always, and I'm not the only one, for some reason Paducah, Kentucky became like the laughingstock and became the reference when you want to talk about, no offense, but a small town in middle America. So maybe I should stop making fun of Paducah, Kentucky, and should choose a new scapegoat. So I guess Des Moines, Iowa, you're my new elected Paducah, Kentucky.
Gary, Illinois, although they'd probably be Cubs or White Sox fans because it's right anyway.
Exactly. Des Moines, Iowa is like, what? There's other thing than just college sports? I don't know what you're talking about.
Paducah, Kentucky was Bob McCallan's favorite reference there. That's probably where he got it from. One of the most famous broadcasters in Canadian sports.
One of the reasons too is because that did not age well. Okay, so I'm gonna. Back in the mid 2000s, there was a comedian that I really liked called Joe Rogan. That did not age well. Okay, it's not of today's topic I want to go into, but he had a great, funny joke where he's like, you don't move to Paducah, Kentucky because you don't stay there because you like it. You stay there because you have to. So maybe that's where I got it from too. But that is one of the reasons why ratings across the board in MLS could be down a bit. Let's continue this look here. Because of the national TV contracts being up at the end of the season, one of the possible reasons the ratings are disappointing this year could be ESPN going light on promotion for leverage. If they don't hype it as much, they don't get as bigger numbers and be, look, we can offer you a little less money than you want. That is always something interesting, and you can read between the lines. It's not just ESPN here, probably across the board. That's all I'm going to say. But for ESPN, they might be going light on, like FS1 didn't do a bad numbers just because they forgot to do the same thing. So you could say ESPN, you could say Fox going light on promotion for leverage when it comes time to negotiate.
Possible. It's kind of cynical, but let's say these are businesses too, right? These sports media empires are businesses as much as those of us who have worked in it in the past don't want it to be that way. They are. They're about the bottom line. They're publicly traded in some cases, so they need to make sure that they're taking advantage of every sort of possibility they have to save some money, and that is certainly something. They do have leverage when it comes to the soccer contracts. Now, I think that the way that the soccer people can maybe combat that is they start to combine the rights with the national team stuff, because that's where you do see an increase in popularity. And that's, I suspect, what MLS's strategy going forward might be for 2026.
Exactly.
If they can somehow get the USMNT and USWMT rights bundled with that and throw the NWSL into there, then maybe you get a little bit more money for everyone in that piece of the pie. But you have to get along for that to happen.
And CBS does have most of the contracts too. And in the States, it's very interesting how it's going to happen. There's some that are under contract and some not. In Canada, of course, Canada Soccer Business has the rights of the National Association, the Canadian Soccer Association, which includes, of course, the CanPL, also Canada Game from the men and women's side from different competitions in that type of contract. Let's continue this discussion, Duane, with now the migration of American stars to Europe. Do you think the fact that Ricardo Pepi and Tejan Buchanan, maybe you could use that one, but he's Canadian here, but he's a star who used to play in New England. Do you think that's something that truly alienates the viewers on TV? The fact that a couple of stars moved to Europe?
I think that you might be able to make an argument that in the era of Clint Dempsey and Landon Donovan and others like that were playing and leading the U.S. men's national team to good performances in World Cup might have helped them a little, but I don't necessarily think it's a big driving force in taking people away. But what I will say is the lack of, and I spoke to this already, the lack of understanding of who the stars are, the lack of a star system within Major League Soccer does drive your eyeballs away. If you don't know why you should watch, like if you don't know who Carlos Vela is, why you might not too. If you live in wherever, if you don't know who he is, you're not getting promoted. Why would you tune into an LFC game? It's just black laundry.
That's true.
Right?
It's just another player. Let's continue here. The shifting schedule, maybe the fact that the schedule started way earlier than the last few years, especially last year. Last year it started a week from now. Last year started mid-April. It was supposed to start in late February, like it did this year. Maybe the shifting schedule is to be blamed for the bad numbers in the United States so far. And the last reason, maybe the end of NBC Sports Network, which helped the conversation around sports, and then the launch of Peacock and the transition of fans and a sort of fans quitting on sports at the same time. Maybe that's also a reason. Those are all interesting hypotheses, and you can read the entire article on Forbes.com, written by Ian Nicholas Quillen. And of course, it's maybe true, maybe not, but it's a fact. The ratings are down in the US, and the ratings are up in Canada, and I thought it was fun to talk about.
Sure, exactly. Look, I think that the scheduling has a little bit of something to it, and those people that advocate for the winter schedule, which is a bug of mine, don't realize that I think the viewers and the people that go to games associate Major League Soccer with a summertime activity, and I suspect that you might see a slight tick up on this year's rankings once we get into the summer months, and there's less. There's the NBA playoff drive isn't on. NHL hockey's in those markets. Like, all of that drives people away until it's done, and then soccer is something they do in the summer. And baseball, for that matter. Like, baseball numbers dip in April too, right? After opening day, they go down, and then they go back up as the summer progresses.
Opening day, 55,000 people shows up at Sky Dome. Well, it'll still be high because they're good, but I remember a couple of years ago, on the Friday afternoon, 55,000 people show up. On the Saturday afternoon, 2,000 people. I'm exaggerating, but it's true. But go ahead.
Just to say, hilariously, on my phone there, which I'm filming this off of, a Blue Jays promotion popped up as we were talking about them, speaking to a throwback to the start of this show.
Exactly. On that note, we'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk about Gonzalo Higuain retiring. Will he? According to his father, he is done at the end of this season. We'll talk about his legacy in Major League Soccer, or lack thereof. And also, we'll talk about the CCL resuming tonight with the semifinals. And the Nations League draw was announced a couple days ago. We'll look at it and more after this short break.
You are listening to Soccer Today. Follow us on Twitter at SoccerTodaySPN and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sports Podcasting Network. You can find the podcast version of all the shows we do on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcast.
And we're back. I'm Kev Larmy, of course, with Duane Rollins. We invite you to take a second and subscribe to our YouTube channel in our journey to 1,000 subscribers. We're more than halfway there, and with your help, we'll get there before Qatar. We'll get to 1,000 subscribers before the 2022 World Cup. But please subscribe right here and help us continue this great journey throughout the rankings in the podcast world too, because of your downloads over the last few weeks when we've been in the top 10 of soccer podcasts in Canada, in South Africa, in Japan, and in 12 other countries.
Japan. We're famous in Japan.
We're big in Japan.
Big in Japan. That's a subtle reference to the 90s movie Reality. Was it Reality Bites? I think it was Reality Bites.
I have no idea.
Singles. It was Singles. Pardon me, it was Singles. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Pearl Jam did a cameo in Singles, and they kept insisting that they were big in Belgium. But anyway, go on.
So I do like pink polos. I am wearing a pink polo now. And the reason why I'm wearing a pink polo is because according to Jorge Higuain, the father of Federico and Gonzalo and a couple others, but the father of Gonzalo on this case, as mentioned to a couple of different Italian media outlets, that his son, former Milan, AC Milan, former Juventus, and former Napoli player, will retire at the end of this season. If you have forgotten, yes, he plays for Major League Soccer's Miami, Inter Miami FC to be precise. Here are his statistics in Major League Soccer as of today. 44 games, 42 starts, 15 goals, 12 assists, for 27 points, if you know what I mean, in other sports, Duane. But I use that only because that's useful to count what I call the goals and assists per 90, an influence on the result of the game. And we made fun of Gonzalo Higuain because he comes in fit, and a month later he discovers Cuban sandwiches in Miami, and then he's not fit anymore, and the year after he's fit and not fit. And look, as someone who's struggled with body weight his entire life, I can understand totally, but it's different when you're a professional athlete. And in this time around, we've seen this as an example of his motivation. He was motivated at some points, and he wasn't motivated at some points, but he still had an influence on more than 50% of the games he played in, which means at the box score, more than a goal or an assist per game he played. For 0.61. So that's not bad in the influence of the results. Team points per match, it's another way, Duane, that I like to quantify someone's influence on a result, and that doesn't just count offensively, it counts defensively too. And team points per match, it's important. Being surrounded by a terrible front office, terrible players, good offensive players, and a makeshift defense for most of the 44 games he played for Miami, he still has a 1.02 points per match average, meaning whenever he steps on the pitch, it's a draw.
Yeah, look, you can't discount the player from the team here, right? Like, the Inter Miami has been pretty bad, and how much of that is, you get into a chicken and egg conversation now, to use another cliche. You get into how much of that is because he hasn't performed at the level that you would expect from a DP, and how much of that is because what he's been surrounded from won't allow him to do so. And it's probably a little bit of both, right? His fitness issues are there, and he admitted on record that he thought he could come over here and play with a cigarette in his mouth, I believe was the quote. And he found out quick enough that you cannot. MLS is a highly athletic league. It may lack what it lacks in the technical side, and it does. It makes up in the athleticism, and it's not a league that you can come and just retire in anymore. You understand that. Pirlo understands that. Lampard understood it. Gerard. We keep going on, right? If you use the latest example, although
you don't see those anymore, right? And when you do, well, you see the results. And he had to change his attitude. But yeah,
what I will say is this: I had the opportunity to watch him live. I've had the opportunity to watch him live twice. Since he came in, which is a lot considering the last couple of years in TFC's schedule, but nonetheless, he's been fortunate enough to be up here. And he, in person, you do see the quality, right? That goes for all the big guys. Like, when you watch the stars that come over late in their career, you can really see how they technically have superior skills, and you could see it with him. The thing is, you can't you can blame him, you can't blame him for what went on. Like, it's hard to stay motivated when you know it's a cluster. He's playing in a league that he never would have even thought of until, a couple years before. No one grows up, at least up until the last few years, no one grows up dreaming of playing in Major League Soccer. That's just the reality.
Well, not when you're from Argentina.
Yeah, it's just not. It's like, no one here grows up dreaming of playing in the Swiss league. Like, you just don't, right? It's just not on your agenda.
So son, what's your dream? What do you want to be in life? Like, my lifelong dream, Papa, is I want to be the captain of Servette FC. Okay, I want to move to Switzerland. I want to wear that burgundy. I will be the best damn player Servette FC has ever seen. Well, you know what? I'll support you.
I would love that, to see a kid that in those, programs they do for grandma and grandpa. What's your dream? It's like, I want to be a mid-level professional in a mid-league league. It would be.
I was gonna say something bad. I'm not.
Yeah, eventually they would be like, you eventually get to the point in your playing career, you go, I'd be fine playing in Switzerland, but you don't start that way. Anyway, how do you stay motivated? Like, what does it even mean to the guys that come in like that, who have played at the very highest level, to win an MLS Cup? Like, they have to be self-motivated. We've seen guys that have been. We've seen guys like Javinko, DeVio. We've seen guys that have come in here and really, really pushed it and wanted to play at the highest level in Major League Soccer to go out on a high, even though they were a little bit older, even though they'd played at bigger clubs. Then they've done that. But you have to have that self-motivation. And it sometimes works, it often doesn't, and it isn't in this case. And it's another example of Miami just not getting it. And in many ways, although he is still their best player, getting rid of that DP contract and giving them a fresh start to buy another one in, because they will be able to spend a little bit next year on that level, it's a blessing in disguise.
Or maybe you don't, and you keep that money for an eventual stadium in Miami or something, because you still won't be able to do anything with allocation for a while. So maybe you don't spend as much. Maybe you're like, okay, we're just going to plug the few holes. We'll have well, they're not going to even try to do anything. At least that's what the financial responsible thing to do, maybe.
Yeah, let me throw something out quick, and it just occurred to me right now, and we don't see it very often in Major League Soccer, but in North American sport we do see this. I wonder whether Miami, to help alleviate some of their allocation disorders, might consider talking to him and asking him whether he would like to go to a contending team for a half season that has room to add someone. And because of the way contracts are structured, you might be able to squeeze him in on a non-DP situation. I'll give you an exact. Colorado does not have a DP, does not have a scoring threat. Maybe you throw him to Colorado for half a season. They can afford to pay him out. He has a chance to compete for a title in Major League Soccer. They get some allocation back. That we call that a rental in most North American sports. That might be something for them to think of. It's not the craziest idea that has come in my head, even in the last hour. So there you go.
I don't want to know all the other ideas. I'm good. But that could be a good idea. But what's his legacy? We've seen the numbers, and maybe I can put him back on the screen, because not bad. 15 goals, maybe 15 goals in 45 games is not ideal. It's literally a goal every 3 games, give or take 1 game, so we'll skew it to 3.001. But that big of a contribution, is it enough in a DP striker? 1 goal every 3 games. You score 33% of the time you're on the pitch. Is it enough when we add the 12 assists? When we consider that he was not just there as the beginning, right? He came a bit later. Pizarro was supposed to be the one who gets the goals, and he was supposed to help give it a 2-sprung type of attack. What do you make of Gonzalo Higuain's legacy in Major League Soccer?
I think his legacy in Major League Soccer is kind of what I spoke to already. It was his legacy as an example of where not to do and how not to build a team. Look, I think he could have been a good piece for an established team that could provide him with service and not have to lean on him to be the person to drive him. The other thing about Higuain is I think when he originally was signed, a lot of people assumed he would be the third kind of prong on what would have been like 3 big, huge signings that Miami was going to bring in.
Yeah,
right?
Remember Mathias Pellegrini, who they couldn't play because of all, and Matuidi, Yeah, maybe he was.
Yeah, and Miami's just not been able to get it done. It's been a disaster of a launch. We talk a lot about Cincinnati, as being the poster child for how to not launch an MLS team, and they are, but Miami's been bad in a different way.
Miami's been bad since they freaking won when they announced the club in 2013.
Yeah, 2013. It was when
it
they
was
debuted?
2013, Duane. Can you imagine?
Yeah, and look, they've had bad luck too, but I think that bad luck in terms of the way the pandemic hit. Maybe they got caught with their pants down when other clubs have got away with that stuff in the past. Like that is
maybe they got caught with their pants down when they were cheating the rules in rosters.
Yeah, well, that's what
they
I mean.
did.
The Athletic report suggests that it's what some of the stuff they were doing is not uncommon, but it was the sheer volume of how often they were doing it that got them in trouble. And there's sort of some bizarre self-disclosed stuff that really that's just illustrates that they don't know, that they just didn't know how to launch this team properly. They thought the glitz and glamour could get it done. MLS is not a league where that alone will get you titles. The best teams in this league, the best two teams in this league over the past 6 years, are Toronto and Seattle. They are not in glamour markets, right? They are markets that previous to the Armas situation, TFC was run very well. They had guys that knew the league. They had guys that knew how to understand how to manipulate the salary cap in ways that were legal. Seattle's the same way, right? They're savvy, right? I think the NYCFC might be the team that has taken over from what Toronto did in a similar kind of way. They figured it out because they've got money, but it's not just about the money. You've got to make the right kind of signings, the right fits.
You can't waste your money. And I think that's what we're seeing is if you waste your money, you waste that allocation, you waste those DP spots, and then you won't be able to recoup that. And it's an interesting aspect. And we'll wish him all the best if he's going to retire at the end of the season. Gonzalo Higuain did not add anything to his career coming to MLS. I don't think he destroyed his legacy either. He didn't pull a Steven Lampard, so that's the dad. But I don't think he made his legacy, his reputation as a goal scorer better. Also, quickly, Duane, we do have some Concacaf Champions League games to talk about this evening. We do have later tonight the Seattle Sounders, NYCFC, an all-MLS semifinal. And on the other side, we have an all-Liga MX final with Pumas Unam versus Cruz Azul. Who do you favor on each side?
It's hard to say on the all-MLS matchup right now because both those teams are struggling. I saw New York firsthand in person last week, and they just didn't seem like they were firing in all cylinders. Seattle's had equal problems. They're at home in the first leg, so they need to go out and put a marker down today. My tendency is to always bet on Seattle in a playoff matchup because they have a lot of experience in that. Like, jokes aside, they have a lot of experience in that, particularly over two legs, to find a way through. It's rare that they haven't been able to in the last few years. They've lost some one-offs. They lost the MLS Cup final a couple times. They lost that weird game to RSL last year. But over two legs prior to that, they were nearly unbeatable. And that, to me, this is a two-legged tie. So I favor Seattle a little bit because they have the experience here. That said, NYCFC, they're the champions for a reason, and they put a lot of resources into this. European coach, knows two-leg ties, been involved in them at the Europa League level before. So yeah, it's an intriguing matchup. In terms of the other side, after the comeback, I Cruz Azul to me is maybe the team that I might maybe is the best out there, but the way that that they came back in the other team escaped me. Who else they playing? It's escaped me right now.
Cruz Azul eliminated Montreal and
the other team. That's escaping my
Pumas.
Pumas,
did the
thank
comeback.
you. I keep having Tigres in my head.
Pumas did the comeback, because they have a Puma. So Puma and a Tiger, they're both felines, so it's okay, Duane. Your biology is not that far off between the two. So that's
I'm favoring Pumas is what I'm saying, because I think that they're the team of destiny having come back from New York. That's New England, pardon me.
Exactly.
I'll get this straight. I watch, I swear. I watch the games. I don't just look at the stats.
Of course, there'll be some great games, and we'll break them down tomorrow on the show. And of course, tomorrow will be our Canadian Premier League preview, Duane, and looking forward to it. You'll have some great information on tomorrow's show. Make sure you follow us on all the different social media platforms to make sure you never miss a show. Make sure you follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. If I don't hit my microphone too often, it'll be better. But subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/sportspodcast. Podcasting Network. Click that notification bell so you know when we upload a brand new podcast. We'll be live from now on Twitter. And on YouTube, you'll have an even better version of the show. We're broadcasting in 1080p now. Thank you, technology, for making broadcasting in full HD so seamless. And we appreciate your support and your comments in the comment section below. That's one of the reasons why we love the YouTube platform, is because we can interact. So thank you to everyone who's taken a second and writing below the shows that they enjoy, talking about the show. If you agree with us, great. If you don't, great. Just write it down in the comment section below, and we'd love to hear from you. On that note, you can follow Duane at 24th Minute, myself at Kev Laramie, and this show at Soccer Today SPN. We'll be back with a brand new edition tomorrow, but as always, until then, have a great soccer.